Well, hey there, everybody. It's Chris from the Rate the Record podcast, and oh my goodness, what time is it? Oh, it is that time of the week again, where we do the new music review. We haven't had one for the last couple of weeks. Apologies, things happen. Regardless, I have one now. I have 3 songs to listen to. Well, I mean, I already did. I'm going to tell you about them, and I want to know what you think about them, so make sure you let me know. But until then, I guess we should just get into it. So, let's get into it. No clever transition, just gonna roll this way and pretend like I was already here in the first place. So first up we have the band Rolodex Darko. They're an experimental metal band out of Hamilton, Ontario. They don't have as much notoriety in the grand music world as other artists I've covered on this particular show, but I've enjoyed them for the last few years now, so that's why I wanted to pick them. Up until recently, prior to releasing studio quality singles on things like Spotify and Apple and everything like that, the band had actually created a lot of a mystique for themselves in the music scene. They put on some really intense and insane shows. They would hand out random demos to people at random shows and everything like that. A lot of weird things with this band, but it's also been a very fascinating thing to see. And now they're just putting music out on the major streaming platform, so hey, now we all get to hear it. They released a new single back on Halloween called Blind in the Valley of Suicides, so let's take a listen. The intro blasts in immediately with these really hard hits of both drums, guitar, and bass, but the best part is when the bass does these cool little filler parts between each hit and everything, so I think that's cool, great way to start off the track. The best part about this intro, though, is that it's also technically the chorus as well, so you have this kick-ass little portion to look through as the song progresses. Look forward to as the song progresses, that's what I meant. The verse is a weird mix of this dark metal funk, if that makes any sort of sense at all. I mean, the groove is funky, but it's still very dark and new metal-ish in a way, if you want to put it like that. Not trying to throw it any sort of shade or insult, just saying that's kind of what it reminded me of. Throughout most of the track, it sounds like the vocals have this very thin layer of overdrive or distortion on it, which honestly I don't mind. If you've seen my past reviews, I like stuff like that, especially when it suits the style, and it definitely suits what's going on here. There's a solo in the middle of the track too that definitely brings out the noisier, more experimental portion of the track. It has a lot to do with the effects being used on the guitar and everything like that. Very high pitch, very kind of grindy almost sounding. It's weird to explain, you'd have to hear it, but it definitely invokes this feeling that nothing is really safe here. The ending pulls back on the intensity a little bit to give you this softer kind of feeling, but still demented portion of the track, and it just drifts for a little bit until it finally gets to a... When I say noisier ending, I don't mean musically noisy, it's just noise at the end, so there's that. Overall, I think it's great. I'm usually pretty down for the songs that this band's released and the ones I've heard in the past and have been able to hear on SoundCloud and everything like that, so I was very happy to do this review. I haven't talked to anyone in the band, I just wanted to do this. But this song really gives you a little bit of everything. It plays really well into its strengths without going overboard, and I would actually recommend checking it out, absolutely. A side note, if anyone in the band happens to be listening, could you possibly make A Kind Man a single, please? I realize it's not on SoundCloud anymore, and that made me very sad. I really like that song. Thank you. So next up we have Fever Ray, the experimental electropop project from the artist Karen Dreger. I'm really hesitant to say that because they're Swedish, and I'm not certain if I'm saying that correctly at all. Probably not. They're usually busy with their other band, The Knife, which they have with their brother Olaf Dreger. Again, I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. I'm gonna stop apologizing and just admit that I suck at things. Regardless, Karen has Fever Ray as a solo project, and they just announced a brand new album coming out in 2023 called Radical Romantics. There's been 2 singles dropped so far, but the one most recent is called Carbon Dioxide. The song kicks off with this very ambient flow and plucky synth that kind of slowly build into the verse. You get more of that going into the verse, but then you also have this pulsing kick drum type beat going on. I mean, it is electropop after all. A lot of interesting textures going through the verse as well too, just kind of things coming in and out of the verse in the background. Really enjoyable, especially in headphones when you just kind of take a minute to enjoy those things, or at least try to pay attention to them. The vocals are very straightforward with its tone, and I mean, if you're familiar with The Knife or Fever Ray at all, you know that Karen's vocals, how do I even explain them? They're very piercing in a non-abrasive way. Does that make sense? A very standout voice. Not completely comparing it to Bjork, but Bjork has one of those very standout voices that you could pick out of a crowd. I feel like Karen's the same way. Again, not saying that they are the same with singing. It's 2 very different singers here. Please don't write hate mail. The whole track does run as a poppy dance number, and it feels slightly darker than most pop tracks though, so it stands somewhere between a mainstream type electropop beat and then experimental indie darker side electropop beat. So you'll find something in there that you like. The energy of the track alone is enough to carry you right through to the end, because honestly, anything that you could get out of this song, you likely get in the first minute of it. Nothing really changes up beyond that. But again, the energy should be enough to carry you through. It was fun enough for me. I didn't really complain too much about it. Overall, this one is okay. I mean, it's not a prime cut in my opinion, but like, I don't necessarily hate it either. Don't know how often I'd go back to it, but I don't mind it. So I'd say check it out. And finally, we have Tallah, a new metal or metalcore or something in between. We have one of those types of bands from Pennsylvania. Quick fun fact about the band: the drummer of this one, Max Portnoy, maybe that name sounds familiar because he's the son of former Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy, so you know there's gotta be some talent in there, right? They released an album back in mid-November called The Generation of Danger, and they've actually been dropping singles all year because apparently the release of this album was pushed right till November 18th when it was supposed to come out like a long time ago. So I think something like 5 singles have dropped, and they just recently dropped that 5th single called Dicker's Done. What a name. So let's listen. I think the intro is fantastic. I think it kind of carries through the entire song, and what I mean by that is like definitely tonally, because it really comes off as like a Meshuggah type tone, mainly in guitar and drums. Like if you know Meshuggah, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about in this. It definitely has that kind of clean, sharp, like processed metal tone. Like, it's hard to explain, but you know what I mean. And because Max Portnoy is the son of Mike Portnoy, I would like to think that he's playing drums himself, but it sounds like it could also be Drum Kit from Hell, which was like that drum machine thing that was in part made with the guy from Meshuggah. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's playing himself, that's fine. Regardless, it sounds good. I like it, I don't care. The verses are far more fun after like my first couple of listens. At first I didn't really dig it, but I started to get into it more as it was going. It's just some straightforward metal riffing, and then on top of that you have the singer who's doing like a lot of screaming, a lot of kooky parts too, which I kind of dig because it does work in this style. I like how it feels like they don't take themselves too seriously, so I can definitely appreciate that. The new metal side of this band, when I said earlier new metal or metalcore, the new metal side of this band definitely comes out in the choruses far more than in the verses. It's one of those things I can't really describe, but you just know it when you hear it, especially if you're like me and you grew up in a time when new metal was like peak music. I'm talking like I must have been like 12 or 13 when new metal was like all you would ever hear anywhere. Or maybe I was a little younger because Follow the Leader came out in 98, right? So I would have been like 9. Regardless, I grew up in that perfect time frame as a young child to watch new metal just be everything. But enough about that. Speaking of Follow the Leader though, I must say, there is a point in the middle of this song where the singer starts aggressively screaming, and I swear to God, it sounds like something Jonathan Davis would do on the Life is Peachy album. Which, hey, if Jonathan Davis or Korn or just the album Life is Peachy is an influence on this band at all, you can definitely hear it here, and I do dig it because I do like that album for the most part. Towards the end though, he just really lets go and just belts out this really high-pitched aggressive screaming, something that you hear like Mike Patton do when he filled in for the Dillinger Escape Plan for that Irony's a Dead Scene EP. I'm just throwing out references all over the place, but this is literally the best way I can describe anything I'm hearing. But regardless, that's what it reminded me of, and I really like that EP. I really like Mike Patton. I really like what he did with the Dillinger Escape Plan. I really like the Dillinger Escape Plan, so far, this is running pretty well for me. The production all over this track is pretty solid through and through. The mix is clean and tight, and everything has a chance to be heard and shine a little bit, so I really like what I'm hearing here. Overall, decent track. Obviously, I threw out all those references. I do enjoy it. As kind of briefly mentioned before, I wasn't huge on it the first couple of times that I listened to it, but it definitely grew on me though. I give it a thumbs up, and I would definitely think that you should check it out. And that's it. 3 songs. I actually got through them in the weirdest way possible, just throwing out references and doing all that kind of stuff. Anyways, yes, those are 3 songs that I checked out. Now it's your time to check it out and let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. You know we're always super curious to know what you think of these songs. We like to have these interactions with you, and this is one of the best ways to do it, so by all means, let me know what you think. You can also let us know over on our social media pages at Rate the Record Podcast, over on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok if you want to leave comments there too, although, I mean, that might feel irrelevant over there. Regardless, you can follow us there. But all those links and our Ko-fi.com/Rate the Record link if you want to support the show financially for our podcast itself, and of course all the streaming links you could possibly ever need are all found at ratetherecord.ca. Now, you'll notice this past Monday, at least at the point of releasing this episode, that we didn't have a new episode of the podcast out. Life happens, and so we just decided, hey, let's not record this week. But don't worry, you could still go all the way back to episode 57 like a couple of weeks ago, again at the point of recording this and releasing it. It was Met, episode 57, and their album Atlas Vending. I chose it, so you know it's going to be a good album, right? Right. Anyways, you can go check that one out, and we do have a new episode coming out this Monday. We already recorded it, so you can expect something new. And by the way, it's Savannah's birthday album. It's her choice, so you might want to check it out. And that's all the things I have to plug. That's all the things I have to say, so I'll let you go now. So we'll see you on Monday for the podcast. Until then, go listen to some awesome music. Take care, friends.